Okay, so welcome back, and now we're going to do a few examples here, and we're going to involve reciprocals, inverses, and the calculator. Okay, so the first one is we're given secant of this angle. Okay, so we want to find the secant of this angle. Okay, but we want to find we're going to use reciprocals to do this. Okay. So if we use secant of this angle, right, and the thing is we don't have secant on our calculator, right? So we're going to have to use the inverse operate, not inverse, sorry, the reciprocal, right? So what is secant? Secant is the reciprocal of cosine. So it's 1 over cosine. So this is equal to 1 over the cosine of 27.82 degrees. Okay? And so now, since we know that, well, then we know this, we could also write this way. Now, again, the notation is very important. This is going to be cosine of 27.82 degrees to the -1 power. Okay, now again, don't confuse that with cosine inverse, okay? So now, all I have to do is put this in my calculator, and I'm going to do 1 over. Now watch what I'm going to do. So I'm going to do cosine, so I'm going to do cosine of 2781. So I'm going to do cosine of 27.81 degrees. Okay, so that's what I put in the calculator. Okay. Now, all I'm going to do is I'm going to use my inverse key, which is right here. Okay, right there. And I'm going to hit that, and now I'm taking the inverse, not the inverse, but the reciprocal, right? So I'm taking the reciprocal of that. Okay, so now if I hit enter, it gives me that answer. Okay, and if you don't believe me, let's just do 1 divided by cosine of 2781. Oops, sorry, this should be 2782. But anyway, I'm going to use 2781 just to show you here. Okay, so what I did was I took, so there's 1, now here's the other one, 1 divided by the quantity cosine 2781. If I hit enter, I get the same value. But again, it was 2782, not 2781. I put in the wrong value. So let's do it again, and so we can get the right value. Cosine 27.82 and inverse key, and so the answer is 1.1307. So 1.1307. Okay, that's the answer. Now in the next example, we've got cotangent theta equals 0.354. Okay, now we've got 2/100th place, right? So that's why we're going through out to 4 significant digits. So actually 1, 2, yeah, so that should be right. Oh, actually, hold on. This should be 1. There you go. Now, here we want to find theta. Well, how are we going to find theta in this case? Well, we've got to use an inverse function, right? But we got cotangent. And there's no inverse cotangent in this case. We've got tangent and we've got inverse tangent. So how are we going to use our calculator to find this? Okay, well, we're going to have to change this into something that we can use in our calculator. So what can we use in our calculator? Well, we've got sine, cosine, and tangent. and we've got inverse sine, inverse cosine, and inverse tangent. So that's all we have. So how can we change this into something where we can use one of those functions? Okay, so let's change this into tangent. Okay, well, if the cotangent is equal to this, well, how can we use tangent? This is 1 over tangent. Okay? So I've got cotangent here. I can use the reciprocal of tangent, right? What is tangent? Well, tangent of theta equals what? Equals 1 over cotangent of theta, which equals 1 over 0.354. Right? So the calculator value is shown, let's see here. Okay, so now we got tangent, but we want the angle, right? So now what we have to do is we have to take the inverse tangent, right? So again, this is equal to what? This is 0.354 to the inverse, right? So now what I have to do is, now if I want the angle, right? So the angle then is equal to the inverse tangent, right? So now I can use inverse tangent of what? Tangent theta. So this is going to give me theta, right? So I'm taking the inverse tangent of this to get this, which gives me this. But I'm going to also have to do the same thing to this side. So that's going to be equal to the inverse tangent of what? This whole thing. So it's going to be 0.354 to the negative 1 power. And so now this is what I can stick in my calculator. Okay, so now let's do that. Okay, so I'm going to do inverse tangent. So inverse tangent of 0.354. And then I'm going to take the inverse of that. And so now this is what I have in my calculator. Okay. And so now all I have to do is hit enter, and that's the degree. So now I'm going to go to, since I have 3 significant digits, I'm going to go to 70.5. So 70.5 degrees is the approximate answer. So theta is approximately equal to 70.5 or 70.5 degrees. Okay? Now, what about this last one? Now here I've got secant theta. And now in this case, what they want is they want the sine of theta. Ooh, so now we got an extra step here. So we have the secant of theta, but we want the sine of theta. Okay, well, we've got to be able to undo this and then take the sine of it. So we need to find the angle and then take the sine of that. But is there a way we could do this all in one step? And the answer is yes. Because again, we can take this, right? And we can say, okay, what is secant? Well, secant is 1 over cosine. Okay? Because we don't have inverse secant here on our calculator. Okay? So let's see if we can get it into a form where we can have an inverse function. So we know that secant theta is the same as 1 over cosine theta, which is equal to 1 over 2.504. Okay? Which is the same as saying, what? That this is equal to 2.504 raised to the negative 1 power, right? And that's what we have so far. Okay, now, hold on a second. Is that what I want to say? Secant. Oh, no. I'm sorry. This is wrong. I don't know. Jumped the gun. So hold on a second. This is equal to this, so this is still equal to 2.504. That's a mistake. Sorry about that. Okay. So this is equal to this, right? Okay. So if this is equal to this, if I take the reciprocal of this side, right, then I have to take the reciprocal of this side, and so I get cosine theta equals 1 over 2.504. That's what I want. That's what I was trying to get to. And so cosine theta is equal to, and again, I can just write it this way, okay, for my calculator, right? Okay. Now you could put it in your calculator this way just fine. You just have to have extra parentheses to make sure that your calculator does it correctly. Okay, so this is cosine, right? So now I need the angle, right? So how do I get the angle? Well, remember, to get the angle out, I have to take the inverse cosine of both sides. So that means the angle, theta, is going to equal inverse cosine of what? 2.504 to the negative first power. Okay? And now I want the sine of theta. That's the goal, right? That's what they're asking us to do, calculate the sine. So in this case, now I'm just going to take the sine of both sides. So sine of theta equals now the sine of the cosine inverse of the 2.504 to the negative first power. And so now this whole thing is what I'm going to stick in my calculator. So now let me do that and then I'll show you. So I'm going to take the sine of the inverse cosine of 2.504 inverse so this is what I have. Okay, so I have the sine of the cosine inverse of 2.504 to the negative first power. And then I end the parentheses, and now I go down and I hit enter, and it's 0.9168. Okay, so the sine of theta is 0.9168. And I rounded to 4 significant digits. Okay, that's it. Have a great day.